The blueprint of success, skills over scores. At Apex Academy, the future was measured by the index. Every student wore a sleek wristband that projected their academic rank in a shimmering green light. Amara stared at her wrist, where a bright 98.5 hovered in the air. To the world, she was the definition of success. But as she looked at the sterile, high-tech classroom, she felt more like a hard drive than a human. She had the marks for any university, but she didn't know how to build a single thing. Dax sat in the front row, his wristband projecting a near-perfect 99.9. He was the king of the index, a master of memorization who could recite textbooks by heart. He saw college as a trophy to be won, a natural extension of his perfect score. When the teacher praised his rank, Dax leaned back with a smug grin, his green light reflecting in his eyes. He was the school's golden standard, the ultimate symbol of a predictable, paper-perfect future. The school hosted Future Day, where elite universities and tech giants came to scout the best. Amara stood before the booth of a famous robotics firm, her heart hammering against her ribs. When the recruiter asked to see her portfolio of hands-on projects, Amara's mind went blank. She had spent every waking hour studying for the index. Her wristband showed a high score, but her hands were empty of any real-world creations. She was a scholar with no craft. Frustrated and seeking quiet, Amara wandered into the school's basement, far beneath the glowing halls of the index. There, she discovered a workshop that smelled of hot oil and ground metal. In the center of the room stood Soren, a student who was almost invisible in the school's rankings. His wristband was dim, showing a low score, but his hands were steady and covered in grease as he worked on a complex, whirring machine. Soren didn't look up as he adjusted the gears on a custom-built drone. He wasn't studying for a test. He was solving a mechanical puzzle. His movements were fluid and full of purpose. To the index, Soren was failing, but in this room, he was a master of his domain. Amara watched him from the shadows, mesmerized by the way he understood the machine's soul. He wasn't chasing a grade. He was mastering a skill. The index measures what you can remember, Soren said, finally acknowledging her. But the world pays for what you can do. He held out a soldering iron, the tip glowing with heat, and pointed toward a broken circuit board. Amara hesitated, her fingers trembling. She knew the theory of circuitry by heart, but she had never actually felt the weight of a tool. Soren gave her a steady, encouraging nod, inviting her to cross the line from theory to practice. For weeks, Amara spent her afternoons in the basement sanctuary. She struggled at first, burning her fingers and misaligning gears, mistakes no textbook had ever described. As she spent less time memorizing and more time building, her index score began to slip. The holographic number on her wrist dimmed, but for the first time, her confidence felt solid. She was learning the language of steel and silicon, finding a rhythm that lived in her hands rather than her head. The day of the final innovation fair arrived, the ultimate test of the graduating class. Dax stood at his booth, displaying his perfect transcripts and a sleek digital presentation about the future of management. He looked at Amara's dim wristband and smirked, certain that his academic prestige would win. Amara stood at the next booth over, her hands resting on a prototype, a compact, solar-powered water purifier she had built from scratch. A lead engineer named Elena walked past the rows of perfect scores. She barely glanced at Dax's digital charts. When she reached Amara's booth, she stopped, her eyes narrowing with interest. Elena didn't look at Amara's wristband. She looked at the welds on the purifier. "Show me how you handled the filtration pressure," Elena said. Amara didn't recite a definition. She flipped a switch, adjusted a valve, and explained the physics of her own creation. Amara walked out of the fair with a high-level apprenticeship offer tucked into her pocket. Her wristband was still dim, but it didn't feel like a failure anymore. It felt like a shed skin. She realized that while college was a path for some, a skill was an engine that could take her anywhere. As she stepped into the sunlight, she wasn't just a number on a screen. She was a creator, finally ready to build the future she had once only read about.